Good evening, ladies, gentlemen. You want to see something weird, something kind of cool, I guess? If you're like a little kid, you probably think this would be cool. Last week, I'm pretty sure you see this lump on my pinky finger here. I'm like quite confident that that's my bone. I broke my finger, and then I decided to leave it off. At the wife finally getting annoyed with the pain that I've been in. I went to the doctor's today and I get to get x-rays tomorrow. Didn't spend longer than half an hour at the clinic though. Thank God for Canada's income or healthcare at any income bracket, I should say. But yeah, what a fun way to deal with the week. But nonetheless here, folks, we got a lot that we're going to get into as I try desperately to remain unpolitical or at least biased. But in a world where politics are reigning supreme over the market, we got to try and talk about this because I did talk about it in some of the videos this week as you could not have it at all any better. ISM surrounded by too many chicken heads pointing fingers at Trudeau when it's all just noise. Great video. And I try and remind you guys that in the long run, this is complete noise. We're trying to zoom in here and just talk about what is going on and how it's affecting markets and stocks, because I promise you it's affecting markets and stocks, right? And I love that some of you said, love your positivity and calmness during the turmoil. Thank you. I'm hopefully going to remain like that because the conversations I have with friends and family, usually if it's business related, is very even kill regardless of opinions and what side of the aisle you're on. But usually when the doors close and the personalities start coming out, things are getting flared. Whew, baby, the spiciness going on right now that I'm sure so many of you are experiencing out there. And don't worry, I will get to your things here in a bit when it comes to, is Amazon a good stock right now? Is it? Who knows with these tariffs, man? 10% on all those products, 60% coming from China. Financial degenerate for life. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about here, boys. So getting into it here, first and foremost, I want to point out that globally right now, we're seeing quite a recovery in currencies. I mean, the yen's up like 5%, the Japanese yen, you've got the euro is up like, 5% this just in the last month. We're seeing the Canadian dollar not really recover that much. It's up still 2%. I mean, in the last month's not bad. We're now up to 71 cents. Why does it say? Oh, no, this is the American peso. What am I talking about? I do not have this set up right. It should be peso to USD. Am I comparing everything to the friggin' Canadian dollar here? How much is the peso up this month? Oh, well, 2%. Okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. Got to make sure we're getting this correct here. We got the Canadian dollar that has actually done nothing this month. So as we see a lot of other currencies start to bolster back, ours is still kind of lackluster at best. And there's a lot of debate right now on over, what's going to happen with the Canadian dollar here. We're going to get over 70 cents. Are we going to rally like the rest of the markets are? We're going to remain in this kind of toilet. Now, don't get me wrong. The euro, a lot of these currencies have a long way to go against the power of the USD, but what we're starting to see is this shifting trend in consumer spending, this shifting trend in investors and how they're looking at, where they're putting their money in the turmoil that the markets are experiencing thanks to this tariff war. In fact, Tesla sales continue to crash in Germany and China. You've listened to the Chinese politics over there, whether you like China or not, man, oh man, they are just in as much, uproar over the insanity that's currently going on with the administration in the United States. But apparently the Tesla sales in Germany now have plummeted 76%. We're seeing a lot of fluctuations in global markets when it comes to Tesla's auto sales. And even in Canada here, there was a news article that for some reason Canada is going to get rid of their the EV tax credits. And somehow within 3 days, there were like 1,800 Teslas sold against it was like 3 dealerships that sold them all. And like CTV was trying to investigate and nobody would comment on who actually bought 1,800 cars in like 2 or 3 days from a couple of dealerships. Like, it didn't make any sense. There's a lot of nefarious stuff going on as Canadians choose to travel elsewhere. And I'm even seeing Americans say that like they're going to try and support Canada, Mexico, depending on what side of the aisle you're on here. But Canada canceled an incredible amount of travel to the United States. According to this, Americans cited a drop of 40% in February from the same month in 2024, while 1 in 5 customers canceled their trips to the US over the past 3 months, a 40% plummet. If something like that consisted over the entire year, I think Canadians spent about $20 billion visiting the United States. Now imagine like half of that going away. It's kind of incredible, man. Like, it's like, these aren't small numbers anymore we're talking about, right? Like, these are the severe impacts of the war that we are experiencing. And I think a lot of people are shunning away, trying to pretend like this isn't an economic war, but it's unfortunately the reality that we're now in. Like, it's a literal economic tariff war. it is what it is. Like, it's kind of unfathomable. It's something that I've never experienced in my life. So I'm trying to educate myself the best I can. And again, I'm not somebody that likes to point fingers. I don't like to get too nationalistic about this because I'm just for the people, I guess, as they like to say. Like, I just, just want to place my chips and just try not to get destroyed in between all of it. But the US markets continue to tank in pre-market as investors continue to sell off. And when I say tank and crash, a lot of people look at the broader markets and be like, the markets didn't tank, Kyle. They're down like 1.5%. The S&P's not that much at all. It's like, yeah, I get that, but go look at the rest of the markets, like speculative markets. You look at Tesla, you look at Palantir, you look at some of these cryptos, you look at anything that draws speculative risk, and those things are tanking, which is an underlying reality of a continued sell-off that tends to happen and continue to have ramifications through the broader markets, which is what we're seeing, right? Like, this sell-off could last for several months. It could be another 2022 situation where, we might only be down a couple percentage points on the S&P and the TSX, but these are things that are trends, right? And once they start, it's really hard to get them to shift without something, rather intense, which is something I don't think we're seeing, because all of us are sitting here on the back of policy that nobody can understand anymore. And I really feel like when I talk to my friends, when I listen to YouTubers, when you guys listen to me, we're all sitting here trying to figure out what's going on, because there is no real path from Trump or the administration. I don't know who's putting this shit together, but they speak with nothing that makes sense. And I think a lot of people are well aware of that, because if they weren't, money wouldn't be pouring out of the markets, right? Money wouldn't be pouring out of USD back into other currencies. People wouldn't be boycotting. People wouldn't be doing this or that. Like, I mean, it's quite apparent that everyone and their grandmother just wants some kind of certainty in a very uncertain time where policies don't have any clarity if they can even work at all over the long term. Because a lot of people are going to say this bullshit that it's for negotiation tactics, or it's for this, or they want to get the interest rates down, which is what I was thinking. And we're all trying to be like, is this a real game of chess? Is this guy just a moron? I mean, all of us, everybody's acting like this right now. And this is what's so funny, is that in periods like this, we start seeing real resilience, from politicians and things that I never thought we'd see, which we'll talk about in a moment. We're going to talk about the Canadian stocks and so much more in between, but we all got to ask ourselves what we're doing here tonight. The same thing we're trying to do here.
Right? What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain.
Oh,
Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, this is what it feels like. Absolute just insanity. So we're going to try and take over the world by just picking the dips up and not getting caught into too much of this rhetoric. Because again, I don't like nationalizing. And the whole world is nationalizing against everybody right now. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in economics, because usually, again, with the geopolitical events we've seen, we're usually pretty sheltered from that to most extents. But now it's like, it's happening. It's fucking happening. So anyways, when it comes to my stock portfolio, I was shocked to finish the week only down 0.52%. This kind of blows my mind, but with SEHD really kind of bolstering, Take Two still holding in pretty strong, which probably won't happen into the mid to next week. The good thing about this is I still have a job. I still have good income. I still have a cash emergency fund, and I have some stock market cash that I haven't fully invested that I am looking to buy stocks with. The question is, what do we buy? Because you're kind of stuck to the tale of two stories here, right? Like, you can either go into the safe recession, so-called proof, where money will hide out. That is your SCHDs of the world. Those are your stocks, like your Waste Connections, your Procter and Gamble's, probably your Pepsi's will start to recover here. A lot of people are going to chase to those stocks, but as somebody that is young, that has diversification, that has exposure to a lot of these recession-proof stocks for moments just like this, I'm looking for where real opportunity presents itself, because I want to buy the destruction. As we've seen through the pandemic, to 2008, the dot-com bubble, you got to live through these. You can't sideline this shit, because we don't know the tops and the bottoms, but we sure as hell can look where the destruction is on AAA rated companies and start picking up some dips. Now, I'm obviously going to cost average probably into the S&P from here, some more of my ETFs, but I'm really looking at some of the stocks I hold, hoping they go much lower. I'm not in retirement. I'm sure people that are in retirement, I hope you have a diverse portfolio and you're comfortable with motions like this, because you need to understand these things are going to happen a lot. This isn't going to be the only time this is going to happen in my lifetime. It's going to happen probably a few times. So we just got to kind of understand our balancing and our risk tolerance to deal with it. Is so many people wait for destruction to rebalance. I hear so many investors out there being like, I'm rebalancing my portfolio. Oh my God, I'm so scared. It's like, what were you prepped for before? Like, this shit happens all the fucking time. Just because we've been lulled into a sense, like, I feel like ever since the pandemic hit, we've been thrown into this like twilight zone that we've never come out of. It's just always what's happening next. 2010 to 2020 was the best era to be alive. I'm so grateful I lived through a great decade because it's been a shit show ever since. But anyways, I will point out that when it comes to the Canadian side of the border, I am shocked, like absolutely blown away that like I never heard a lot of support for Trudeau. I've never heard a lot of support for Doug Ford, the premier here. But ever since this shit unfolded, like people are rallying behind these guys, and it's not even Canadians anymore. It's like US citizens. If you did not watch this video that went viral yesterday, it's got like 1.2 million views in a day. You can come watch it. It really kind of shows the, again, if you want to get into the politics, it's just funny how like the Canadian side of the border here, and in a lot of other, countries, people make a lot more sense than Donald Trump does. But you read the comments and the support is just overwhelming. Canada doesn't deserve to be treated like this. I'm from Minnesota. Tariffs will hurt. Do what you have to do. Stand up to this idiot. Seattle here. I will be spending my 35th wedding anniversary in Vancouver. We love Canada. Thanks for standing strong against this BS. German, American, couple living in Germany, just booked a vacation to Canada, skipping in our yearly trip to the United States. Like, you read these comments and they just don't quit. There is hundreds on this video, and the likes they have are just insane. Like thousands and thousands of people supporting Canadians, which blew my mind. I am honestly shocked. I'm a little bit humbled, and I love that people love Canada because this is my home country. So yeah, I'll be a little patriotic about it. I appreciate you all with all the love. It's great. It's beautiful. I don't want to get nationalistic. I really hate that we're dealing with this shit. And I love US people. I love Mexican people. I love all of you. It's just crazy that this is the reality of what's going on. And when we talk about some of the stuff that really affects what's going on between the US and Canada, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I've done my due diligence. I have sat down, and I'm probably still an absolute moron about this shit. But when somebody says something, you want to do some research, right? Like when Trump says, oh, trade deficit, Canada is the biggest problem, right? Like Canada's it's literally like one of the smallest of all the trading partners with the United States. I mean, China's huge, Mexico's huge, Vietnam is huge, Germany's huge, Japan is huge, and Canada, I wouldn't say Japan's huge. Like Germany, Canada, Japan, Ireland, like these are pretty small trade deficits. For those that don't know what trade deficits are, in the most simple terms, it just means a country is basically importing more than they're exporting to these countries, which means more money is going out than technically is coming in. But it makes sense for Canada because we give you guys, the US, the cheapest oil out there. I mean, we have a huge oil thing with you guys. Like if you take a look at the oil reserves largely, which is why it kind of makes more. And I do want to point out too, this is something that really kind of perplexed me a little bit. The only way Trump was able to actually pull off this tariff war was because there's a policy that allows him to skip going through Congress, that if you want to enact tariffs, it has to be under certain policy acts. And one of those is the Border Patrol and drugs. Because remember when a little while ago I was talking about how it makes no sense that the people are coming out of Trump's office saying this is purely about border and drugs. That's all it's about. But then Trump's saying, no, it's about manufacturing and getting ripped off. And we want Canada to be the 51st state. And it didn't make any sense. But it seems to be like this line that's drawn where, to enact that policy, you need the people behind you saying this has everything to do with the border. Even though more drugs come from the United States and Mexico to Canada than we ever ship out to the United States. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when you start realizing that the U.S. is limited on their supplies when it comes to commodities, especially oil, like all of this starts to make a lot more sense from like either a negotiation tactic or if he legitimately thinks he was just going to walk in here and take our country. I mean, that's, he seems to want to do that with everybody, right? Greenland, anybody that has something that has more than the U.S. has, he seems to want to be a little bit more partaken in. But I mean, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Canada have way more oil than the United States does, right? The United States is number 9 on oil reserves, and they're depleting them pretty rapidly. So it makes sense that, our commodities, and then they go well beyond. I mean, you look at the commodity difference here, which I find really interesting from a trade deficit standpoint, because these numbers don't add up, which also doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I guess there's some adding up, but to some extent, I mean, the United States imports $421 billion worth of products in 2024 from Canada. I think it's a lot more than that when you obviously include, this is just import exports, right? Like we're not talking about like the digital products, maybe to some extent, when you're not talking about travel, there's a lot of things that come into like our economies because they're so intertwined at this point. But I mean, Canada, is exporting a huge amount, which is mostly oil, right? Oil and energy is like the largest exporter, whereas Canada still imports $277 billion in 2023 of goods. Like these are not small numbers. I mean, both sides of the border, these numbers are still pretty astronomical, right? Because apparently Canada and the United States are the world's most extensive trading relationship, with the U.S. being Canada's largest trading partner and Canada being the largest purchaser of U.S. goods and products, right? And we're already seeing the effects that this is having on companies in Canada and the U.S., which is why I always think it's funny, because those of us that live in a bubble where we're not experiencing this pain, there are a lot of people that are experiencing these price fluctuations now, like, because it's a trade war, right? Like we're already getting to experience this pain. So this is the fun, convoluted reality of all of this, and how it affects mega cap companies is going to be very interesting, especially the volatility the Qs are probably about to go through. And I'd love to know what all of you guys think about it, because we're going to read some of your Q&As and we're going to talk about some of these stocks. But yeah, it's quite a perplexing, fascinating, ordeal, because the US president speaks with no clarity. He lives in the realm of uncertainty, where the rest of the world seems to make a lot more sense because they talk with clarity and they get the support because of that clarity. And eventually that could backlash onto the United States, and eventually, put pressure on Trump, because that's the whole idea, is get his own people against him. And honestly, I don't know if it's working, but you look around and it's like people are shitting on everything US right now, which is crazy to me. Again, I am being biased here. I'm not against the United States. I'm not against, it's just this policy shit is like insanely fascinating. I will not be participating in any US boycott. Yeah, I found it so interesting that when I go to Walmart, a US company, that they're literally putting Canadian logos or Canadian flags or the maple leaf on products that are made in Canada to help Canadians decide what products they want to buy, even though it's a US company. Like Walmart, I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's so dumb. It's like even Tim Hortons. I'm seeing videos of people being like, drink Canadian coffee, Tim Hortons. It's like, Tim Hortons is owned by a fucking US company. Canada's Wonderland, for fuck's sakes, is owned by a US company. Like, our economies are so integrated. Honestly, most of our oil reserves, the stocks, are probably owned by US companies like BlackRock, for God's sakes. I mean, it's kind of insane. What do you think about SCHD and a TFSA? I wouldn't buy it there, but I did some math and it doesn't seem all too bad, even with the withholding tax. I wanted your opinion. So it really depends on what you want out of it. For me, you got to ask yourself, like, what kind of tax you're going to pay, because at the end of the day, that's the real question, because you're going to get withholding tax. If it's in with your RSP, you don't get the withholding tax, but once you withdraw, it's going to be taxable at your income rate. But if you're in a low income bracket, it might not be that bad. But this is what I told my mom, because she holds SCHD in their TFSA and their retirement account. And I said, look, like, to pay a 15 withholding tax is not bad, because you're going to pay absolutely zero tax on the withdrawal. So just presume you're paying the tax up front, but you can spend it after the fact at a lower rate than your traditional income bracket. It really depends on where you're at. Personally, I like holding in my RSP because I'm only going to draw against it when I'm in a lower income bracket. But for now, it's just easy to use the dividends tax-free. And that's just because I'm younger and I'm probably not going to use them maybe right away, but a few ways to think about that. 2022 correction was a slow beat. I believe 2025 will be the same. Yeah, I believe so as well. I think it's going to be a constant nature of Trump says tariffs, no tariffs. We got a deal. We don't got a deal. There's this, there's that. And people don't care anymore. People are just going to sideline this probably for the next 3 to 6 months. And they're just going to slowly start readjusting their portfolios. Do you think C&Q is a good buy? Yes, if you like the oil industry, though it is going to go through its fluctuations. I YOLO'd into MangoDB. I'm not sure what that is. Is Amazon a good buy right now? Yeah, we were going to get to those comments here in a sec too. With Trump stating today what the tariffs may push the U.S. into a recession, well, no. No shit, Sherlock. Well, I think the problem is that we could be facing a recession right now because of the shock of this. Like, just the thought of the pain that's going to come freezes up consumer spending. I mean, I'm cutting back on, not really cutting back on spending, but obviously, like, I have cash and I'm not like thrusting it into the market here because I'm hoping there's further pain. Like, the discounts we're seeing aren't like that great right now. So like, even like people that want to invest are like questioning where the deals are going to be, what companies are going to be affected. All of this takes time for us to understand, right? I will not, but I really can't believe people are taking this. Yeah, well, they're not, right? I mean, in the US, I'm seeing a lot of people that don't want to take it. Some people are supporting Trump, but I don't know what the sides of the aisles look like. I don't know how many people believe this makes sense. Because to me, it's just propaganda. At the end of the day, like, if there's no clerical plan, if it's not on paper, if it's not enacted, to me, it's propaganda. And it's pushing that propaganda to try and get people to rally behind it, which is why I was saying, like, you can't go out and point fingers behind a politician and be like, F the US, F these policies, F Canada, we should take over Canada by war. That is the definition of like the propaganda machine at work. It scares the shit out of me, to be honest, because it causes nationalizing, and it's a horrifying reality that makes me want to like go to Singapore. It's like, I'm going to go to a country where none of this shit matters, where things are a lot more stable, because, this causes real problems at an emotional level, which, I get it. I want to support Canada and Canadians, but I also want to support the US, and US, like, I have friends everywhere. And like, I don't want to divide any of those friendships because, you know, you want to have good trade relations. Is your portfolio all CAD? You have 34,000 in Take Two Interactive. The displayed numbers you see in my portfolio, they're all displayed in CAD, but most of them are actually US investments. So the broad view you see here is converted to Canadian dollars, but if you convert them to US, they're actually held in US dollar accounts. So I only convert them just to show you what the converted value looks like as the currency fluctuates. Because at the end of the day, like, oh, I'm always going to spend US dollars. Like, I'm never going to convert those US dollars back. I'll just pull them out as USDs and spend them as USDs because I can globally. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, I like showing what it looks like without holding like VFV or whatever. Because at the end of the day, if the US dollar collapses, like, it's going to have a major effect on the performance of my portfolio as a Canadian investor that might convert those dollars at some point. Who really knows? Yeah, and I have about 34,000 CAD in Take Two. I want to get to about 40 or 50 at some point, maybe a little bit more in Google. But remember, the wife also owns a lot of overlapping stocks. My wife owns a pretty sizable position in Google as well. Thanks, brother. Absolutely participating in the U.S. boycott. Patriotic duty at this point. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a little more biased to this, but I will say, you know, the wife, she's looking at specific things. Like, you know, the thing that hurts us the most, I think the only U.S. product we really buy is like orange juice. I mean, to be frank, we mostly invest in the United States, but I do not like own, like, I mean, there's so many international products. I mean, plus we have like Asian food stores here, and like we're buying goji berries and stuff and all kinds of stuff you'd never seen in the United States. Anyways, but let's be real. Most food gets shipped into the US. You really think they're going to start up avocado plants in the United States? Like, they import almost all of that from Mexico because there's so much demand. Like, come on. I mean, it's such a joke to think that like the US could just manufacture all this shit. Like, let's be real. Do you think Carney effect will impact the Canadian markets or any companies in particular? What I think is going to happen here, and I think like, I thought it was a joke when a lot of people said, oh, like, this is just to keep the liberals in power and they're rallying behind all of this. And I'll look at some comments where I've seen that. And I don't think that's the case. I really don't think I think Justin Trudeau earned more respect in the last 2 months than he's literally had in his, like, the last friggin' 4 years of his career here. But the reality is I still think Canadians want a shift. I think they want a different party. I don't think Carney can bring this back around because the policies were just like, it's been too disastrous on our economy. And I think like a lot of Canadians think too, that like, we don't have as much independence as we probably need because of this. And it shouldn't have been all given to the United States. And we're even seeing like the Alberta Prime Minister say, hey, the US doesn't want our oil. We'll ship it somewhere else, right? Like, we have literally one of the largest oil reserves on the planet. Trump is mixed with Russian mafia. I don't know. Who the hell actually knows, right? I mean, the guy started a fucking cryptocurrency that could easily be used to funnel money in from anywhere. Like, it's so nuts, the stuff this guy's doing. Like, even the crypto people aren't that dumb. And they're like, this is crazy. This isn't good for crypto. Like, are you nuts? What are your thoughts if Alphabet is split because of the Departments of Justice? So I think the reality is people think, and this is the big bet, right? Like, I think Alphabet is unjustly hit in its stock price. Let's take a look at Alphabet here real quick. This is my bet on Alphabet. Let me pull it up back here. We'll go back to the Qs. Because what I told you guys when I started buying Google, I bought it and then I sold it. And I sold it because I was hyper concerned that if, ChatGPT, if, Meta and these companies were able to steal search results or search traffic from Google, that they could be largely detrimented. And that's what we thought was going to happen. Because I mean, if search got hit by 10% or more through that ChatGPT growth, like, it would have been disastrous for the stock. So I sidelined it, right? I was like, let's see how this works out. Just like I do with a lot of stocks. When I own individual stocks, I get those concerns because I don't want to go through a freaking 20 or 30% crash when I'd rather be buying it where I think it's a little bit more stable. And that's what ended up happening, was that ChatGPT didn't take over search. So I was like, okay, Google's still like one of the strongest businesses in the world. Like, nobody's taking that away from them at this point. So the idea was that, hey, it was trading I was buying at the 170s to 180. I think our average buy is probably around 180 or whatever. But the big thing here is when it comes to basically, what's your thoughts, on Alphabet's with the Department of Justice, is people keep thinking it's going to hinder their company itself. But I don't think the US wants to destroy Google. I don't think like the monopolistic fine that they're going to get isn't going to like deteriorate there. I mean, Apple's already allowing people to choose different browsers as a default. Like, it's become aware to people that they can choose other, browsers. But what might end up happening is, even if they ask Google to sever, we still own that part of the business. If Google has to spin off a part of its company, it might be better for us. It would be like if Apple spun off its AirPod business. I mean, that would be a big enough business to be in the S&P 500. And honestly, most companies do better independently than they do when they're under an umbrella. I mean, look at Google's business with Waymo, self-driving, genomics, quantum computing, none of that gets fucking justified, and it's 22 PE. Yet Tesla is losing sales globally, and the stock's still trading at astronomical values. I mean, look at Palantir. Look at all these companies that have all this future growth price into their stock. And here Google is trading at a forward PE of like 17. And it has so much more growth right now with its foundational businesses, and it's got so much opportunity in the future. So I don't know. That's why I'm buying it, because I think people are mispricing it. And I think once that April court date finalizes and we figure out what the fines are, we'll get past it. There'll be certainty in the company, and then the stock will start to propel again. But time will tell. Carney is the new leader of the Liberals. Buy Brookfield, Rocket Red, Countdown, Liftoff. Yeah, maybe. What's your thoughts on TNT? I haven't looked at TNT in a little while. The real estates are trading in the toilet. They're actually fairly cheap right now. But I don't really care for REITs all that much because I own a piece of real estate in Toronto already. I don't want like crazy exposure because we've seen the volatility. This was one of the saddest stories I think we saw, right? Because this was a really foundational company, owned a lot of government tenants and all that stuff. I don't know what the concern is now with the government trying to maybe get rid of some of the government building. I don't know. This one got slaughtered though in that interest rate crash. So very, very intriguing to say the least. Trump is ruining the world. I don't know if he's ruining the world. We don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? I think he's ruining the perception of the United States, which is going to cause, again, consumer spending shifts, which is going to cause potential problems, whether Canada goes into recession, whether this is enough to tip the U.S. into a recession. I don't know. I don't think anybody does, but it is quite jarring to say the least. I mean, we're all kind of sitting here. Again, I'll bring it back to the same point that I pointed out at the beginning of the stream, is everybody's sitting here and we're all a bunch of financial clowns on the internet, and we all look like this. This is what everyone is right now. This is what we all, like, everybody, my family, my friends, every fucking finance clown I listen to right now is trying to conceptualize the insanity of Trump, because the guy can't actually like spit out a clear policy that makes sense to any economist. So we don't know what he's actually trying to do unless he really wants to expand the United States footprint. And Americans are ignorant enough to think that we actually want to be a 51st state, or Greenland wants to become part of the US. Everybody's basically stood up and given him the middle finger. But hey, people in the US might be diluted enough to think that, oh, they want us to be a part of them. They should be. We're the greatest country on the planet. I don't know. Who the hell actually knows, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Why do we just tax potash exports? Here's the thing. I don't think we need to do tariffs. I don't think because the reality is the only people that are going to get hurt is the U.S. I mean, if they put tariffs on all these Canadian goods, the U.S. has to pay for it. And the fact is it costs way fucking more to produce that shit in the United States. There is no way you're going to produce cars in the United States profitably. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. You're not going to produce any, you just can't, because the cost of employment is too high. So you're going to switch to robotics. Robotics aren't that advanced yet, and the cost of setting that up is insane, because you have to remember, the greatest power you have right now as a U.S. citizen is open up your mind and look at globally what's going on. You can go buy shit anywhere in the world at a severe discount right now. If I lived in the US, I would be so excited to invest globally if I haven't done so already. Because right now, global currencies are starting to rally against the United States. That's likely going to continue as investors look to, get money out of the United States. So you could see an actual positive return on your currency, and you could buy great companies at an insane discount on the currency conversion. And these stocks have crashed. Look at Nestle. Look at Hershey. Look at some of these Canadian oil giants like Canadian Natural Resources. For the love of God, there's an opportunity of a lifetime. And I watch a lot of US investors, and they just don't seem to care at all. And meanwhile, as a Canadian, I want to own more Google, and I own some international assets, but my God, I just don't have the power of working for US dollars on my side. But if I had US dollars, man, I would be going where it made me feel rich. Like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett's plowing all of his money into Japan for the most part. I mean, those were his largest, most recent investments went. Ask yourself why. Dollar conversion is better. Companies are probably pretty good over there. There's great going on globally. It's not all just this microcosm of let's just buy purely United States. I don't even think America realizes how tariffs mean on American. But yeah, so that's the weird thing, right? Because just let them experience the pain for themselves. Let's see if Trump can figure out manufacturing in the United States, bring manufacturing home, which, don't get me wrong, is not a bad thing. It's just hard because the entire global supply chain, especially when it comes to autos, is so integrated. This is why GM and Ford say we're going to have to lay people off, because there's just no way. This supply chain is so integrated, and so many parts have to come from all over the place that our margins are only 7%. I mean, you guys know that, right? You go look at these companies, look at GM. I think GM, even Tesla's a great example right now. The crazy thing is I don't think Tesla's even making money on their cars anymore. I think they're making money on energy because their margins are just garbage. Like, I mean, you look at the statistics on a company like GM, right? Like GM's profit margin is 3%. Like they have no room for fluctuation here. Like, you know, they either have to severely jack up their prices or lay people off. Those are their only two options. And I remember last time Trump bailed out GM when he was in office last time, which was hilarious because GM is just a forever bankruptable company. And Tesla, like if it wasn't like, look at Tesla. Tesla's like one of these companies that I love the idea of Tesla, but I hate the fundamentals. Their profit margins are higher than GM. They're at 7%. It's clearly not their auto business that's generating this when you see the ramp up in their energy, right? Like they have no room for margin anymore. Like it's crazy to me. Like these companies are not as resilient as people like want to make them out to be. They don't have the room for liquidity. Like Tesla could easily go into like losing money very quickly here. I think their energy business will keep them alive for now, but like, come on, man, it's kind of wild. I've been buying into a VXUS. Is that it a currency buy too? Basically what you're probably, let me see what you're buying here. And I'll tell you, VXUS, is that the stock? The Vanguard Total International Stock. This is a great ETF to buy. It's like, presuming, is this similar to VT, the total, or no, this is just the international stock index. Yeah. So in a sense, that's a good question. I'm curious if this does any of the currency conversion, because this might be similar to VFV, where you're automatically getting some of the conversions in those stocks as it is. You'll feel it in the stock price. Because one of the reasons like this might not be performing so well over the last 5 years, or at least over the last few years, is because of those currencies, because the US dollar has been rallying so much. This has had a hard time, struggling to get up, because VFV, the S&P 500 and the Canadian converted dollar version is just crushed because the dollar's rallied so aggressively, right? But yeah, Taiwan Semiconductors, Tencent, a lot of good companies in here, ASML, Toyota, Nestle. Yeah, this is a great ETF. There's nothing wrong with this. I personally prefer, like, if you're trying to diversify your US stocks, this is great. Most people can just buy XEQT or VT. I honestly think two easiest stocks to cost average into forever, because you get global companies and you get it in market cap performance, which is great. A new car plant would take 5 years to build in the US. Yeah, I know. Like, I don't think I have to argue this with anybody that has 2 cents in their fucking head. Like what Trump says doesn't make sense. Like they can't just bring auto manufacturing. What Trump wants to do is something that will take his entire term. And by then, like, if you're not in a recession or these companies aren't bankrupted again, like it doesn't, like I said, none of it makes any sense. But Pfizer, let's see here, in show with a PE drop from 39 to 18 since that last earnings with big rev, and earnings beat with a 4.43 dividend going to 35.40 by end of the year. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like Pfizer as well, and I would put that in the basket of like those stocks that people are kind of running toward. I honestly think you should just buy SCHD if you like Pfizer, because Pfizer's in there, I believe, still. Maybe not when they reconstitute, but it should be. But yeah, Pfizer's one of those companies I've seen people chase for a while now. I can't wrap my head around healthcare. I'm not a genius with this stuff. So I think I owned Pfizer briefly once upon a time when I was over diversifying into too many stocks. And that's why I decided that like SCHD was like the easiest thing to buy. Because anytime I think about buying more individual dividend stocks in the US side of things, I just always end up coming back to this ETF because it literally holds, like, it has Hershey in here. It has so many great companies. Like, I would buy Pepsi today. I think Pepsi's a good deal right now, but it's in here, right? I like Verizon. I like Pfizer. Like you're saying, from a number standpoint, I don't understand it that well to own it individually. But when you talk about a lot of the companies I hear investors talk about, they sit within this ETF. So I love this ETF for those reasons. A lot of great companies in here. It just makes it so much easier. I just started to buy SCHD. It just won't dip. I mean, it hasn't gone very far, man. This is going to be a recovery play, in my opinion, still when interest rates come down more. But I would just be patient with it and don't worry about it if you're just buying it for income. SCHD and which account would be best? Depends on what you want to do with it, right? Like if you're retired, it's fine to hold it in your TFSA. I just put it in my RSP so I can reinvest the dividends elsewhere or just reinvest them into SCHD or whatever. Why not buy tech covered called ETFs? I don't like covered calls or ETFs. I like covered calls. I just don't like the ETFs. I'd rather do it myself, but I don't care to do covered calls. I'm just not a fan of options, except for leveraging. But I feel like I'd blow up my accounts if I started leveraging stuff, because I really want to leverage some of my plays. Can you shed some light on why the TMX group is up 20% in the last 6 months? Because of trading volume, probably more or less. Let's just take a look at it. Can we see the TSX? Let me see the TSX. It's the TMX, right? TMX chart. This is kind of similar to, let me just see if I can find the stock price here. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's up 15.98%. I mean, it's kind of like Robinhood, right? Like they've been crushing it because probably the amount of trading volume. There's been a lot of listings. I'd have to look at their earnings to figure out why, but I think it's probably pretty similar to the NASDAQ stock, which trades under. Yeah, let's take a look here and see. Are they not up more? Yeah, I mean they've been doing pretty good in the last year too, right? The recent sell-off in U.S. stocks and concern might be a cause for the recent sell-off of 10%. But yeah, it's the same thing with Hood, right? Like anything that's been financially related right now is crushing. Because the amount of trading volume has just been like absolutely absurd. So like anything on the trading platforms is just crushed. Could be the reason. I haven't done enough due diligence, so I couldn't tell you exactly why. But you know, something to think about. I know tech has crashed, but I'm still looking at Nvidia since Nvidia looks really cheap right now, to be honest. I don't play it outside of my ETFs. You want to talk more about Take-Two or any other stocks that it has crossed your radar? Is Google dipping on AI competition worries? I don't think they have to worry. The AI for them is all upside, right? Like their traditional business makes them fair value today. The AI and everything else they do is just cherries. So, I mean, Google's a buying every day of the week. Air Canada, I don't touch the airlines, but I can talk a little bit about Take-Two. But every time I do, I think people get bored. It's kind of like one of these plays that I feel like I'm going to be like a genius for. I hope I'm a genius for it. If not, it's going to look really stupid if it doesn't work out because I don't do big plays very often. But it's probably going to be one of my biggest plays just because I think people are missing, they're missing out on the opportunity. Like I said, the stuff we're talking about here, it's going to cause turmoil, but it's going to open up buying opportunities. I'm just looking for places to buy. Take-Two is probably like overvalued here for the most part, but I'm still going to buy it regardless because my thesis doesn't like people don't care when it comes to video games what politics are doing. Gamers don't care about that shit. Gamers just want a good game. And they're going to be buying Grand Theft Auto 6 way more than analysts think. That's like my only thesis. The company's guiding for $5 billion. Analysts think over 1 year, GTA will generate somewhere between $3 and $4 billion. That fucking game is going to drop and it's going to bank them $5 or $10 billion in the first week to a month. The stock is going to go from a guidance of $5 billion to probably 15 before the end of the year. And the market cap of this company is going to go from 35 billion to 60 or 90. That is what I am predicting is going to happen. And that is why I loaded up very quickly on the stock at all-time highs. I might be wrong. We shall see, but that is my end thesis here because I listen. I'm a gamer at heart. Like I have my VR in the background here. I VR like 4 days a week. I love video games still. I'm very enthralled by the whole world of it. And I know what gamers like, and gamers want to play GTA 6 at any cost. They don't care if it costs over $100. They're going to pay it. So we'll see what happens. GTA 6 should sell 10 million copies over the next year. 10 million. Buddy, they did like 8 to 10 million when they dropped GTA 5 back in fucking 2013. There's like over 150 million like Xboxes and PS5s out there right now that could download like GTA 6, and all those gamers are looking for a game that doesn't suck because nobody likes the new Call of Duty anymore. Everyone's given up on these games. They're tired of them. People want some good shit, and I think they'll do a good job. But 10 million's weak, man. I think they're going to do 50 million, 100 million. Like I said, I think people are underestimating it. Okay, stop talking about we're creating too much hype, man. I know, right? I'm small fish here. The 2,000 views this stream might get, like, trust me, I'm not moving a third. This is why everyone laughs. They're like, Kyle pumps stocks because he gets paid for sponsored companies like a Duro. Buddy, I am not pumping a company up. I don't have the power to manipulate billions. Now, could I get some investor interest? Sure, but I'm just showing you guys what interests me. Like, these companies that I buy just interest me. I don't think I have the power to manipulate their market caps. I don't get like 40 or 50,000 views. Like, I'm not Meet Kevin, right? And even Meet Kevin couldn't manipulate his own stock price. Like, I mean, come on. Let's be real here. So it is what it is. FOMO is real. Take-Two can't help. Yeah, but I don't think people will ever wake up to the reality of it, right? We're not in Palantir stage. Everybody's still worried about AI. Everyone's still worried about chips. I really think once Take-Two takes off, everybody, their grandmother's going to be talking about it. CNBC won't shut up about the fucking retail sales, and because nobody realizes it right now. And everybody, like, I argued with some guy about it because he's like, it's priced in the stock already. This priced in the stock. Stocks rallied so much ever since they announced the trailer. And I was like, oh, it's up 100%. Whoop-de-doo. I'm like, Palantir's up like 1,000%. Like Rocket Labs, Hood, all these like meme Reddit stocks are up thousands of percent. Meme coins are fucking, we're going to the moon. Huck Tua was spitting all over you guys. Trump's meme coin went to like a 70 billion fucking dollar market cap or something crazy. Like this is nothing. Like this is just like modern business for Take-Two. Like they're just doing good right now, regardless of GTA 6. Like, I mean, come on. This is just like they could drop 50%. I could see that happening, but before GTA 6. I mean, they're like if market manipulation or Trump really puts us in a recession, I could see Take-Two dropping. But this should be a recession-proof stock because regardless, people want to play video games. This is like consumer discretionary. This is like smoking. Like, I'm more excited to buy this than I would be Philip Morris right now because I think Philip Morris has got overbought. I mean, this stock went to the friggin' moon. You know what's crazy is like think about how crazy it is for Philip Morris to pump 100% or the way it's from bottom to top here. I mean, it's gone up a lot for smoking is not that resilient. I mean, like there's not a lot of smokers out there. And they're dying slowly. Internationally, they're growing to some markets, but in the Western world, smokers are dying dramatically, almost double-digit pace. Go look at MO's earning. I think smokers were I think they're getting close to double-digit year-over-year declines. I mean, Philip Morris didn't do shit for like a decade. And now all of a sudden, everyone's like, cigarettes and tobacco is the new thing. Everybody wants to be in this game. It's so funny. I think British American tobacco is overbought. Also, yeah, you know what's really funny? And the real funny thing about this is my parents smoked for on and off most of their lives, right? And I said, look, you guys are in retirement. You need to make some money off these companies that you've given way too much money to over the years. So let's buy the best tobacco company. In my eyes, the best tobacco company is British American. They have the best international market exposure where all the growth is for chewables, vapes, all the nuances, and even the traditionals, because in the US, no one wants to smoke. But guess what? In Turkey, all these other countries, people smoking like crazy. The numbers are actually going up. Japan, I think China's seeing increase in smoking and that stuff. So I was like, let's look at this stock. And they ended up buying it somewhere around here. Like right in October of 2023, right around here is when they started buying British American. Their return has been nuts. They have locked in like a 9 or 10% yield. They've seen like a wicked, 30, 40% increase. Like they've done so well over the last 2 years owning this stock. What an incredible time to buy. They pretty much caught the bottom. So congrats to my parents in retirement. They bought it, at a good time. But it might be overbought here. Time will tell. Kyle, so you have a community Discord? I should. I have a chat group you can sign up to in my link down below. I got a WhatsApp group, which honestly is kind of getting wild because there's a lot of political debate these days. I should open a Discord though, maybe in time. I'm too lazy, guys. Like I have a full-time job. I do this shit for you guys way too much on YouTube. YouTube's kind of like a part-time job. So yeah, it's hard to manage all that stuff. Like maybe I should hire somebody to run a Discord for me because like I'm running out of energy. Cause like I'm thinking about doing TikToks and I started like Opus, like some AI tools, and I should start doing some TikToks here again. But man, I'm exhausted and I'm breaking my finger, right? So I'm getting exhausted. I want to spend some time with my family. I'm tired of this bullshit. I'm tired of this nonsense. I just want to go out, get some fucking ice cream, and live a good life with my family. I'm tired of this political bullshit. I just want to own good companies, go back to when companies were cool again, when it was cool to talk about genomics and when it was cool to talk about robotics, and Tesla was cool for making EVs, not for getting involved in Doge, not for Trump, stirring up the auto industry. Like I'm tired of this stuff. I just want to go back to like fun theses, like Take-Two Interactive. Like I love getting involved in companies and just learning shit from other people. Cause like, I don't have to own everything. I miss Palantir, guys. I don't like shit on Palantir just cause it's like, it's overvalued, but like people had a thesis. Like, what's cool? Somebody looked at Palantir when it was trading at like the single digits and they're like, they don't understand this. And then they bought it and they caught a fucking unicorn and they made a shit ton of money. I love seeing that stuff. That is what I love and live for, and I just feel like people are getting vaporized by this shit and they're just missing out on those, what we live for. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. And so am I. Well, that's too damn bad. You can call me. I have like, I'm in my 30s and I feel like I'm friggin' 90. Well, that's too damn bad. Anyways, I'm probably going to stop rambling here, folks. I'm going to go sit in the sauna and live my dream life here in this condo and try and get my finger fixed. I've never broken anything in my life. You want to know how I did this? I'm still getting hounded by it too. I was buying some shelving units for my storage closet because they have 9-foot ceilings. And I bought some nice shelving units. Dare I say the best, the most awesome. Like you would say that they are like the greatest shelving units. But, so they were heavy, they were metal, they were a bit expensive. And I was like, I don't need a dolly. I can carry this shit. And my wife's like, you're really going to carry this shit in? Just get a dolly. Like, I got it. I work out. I got this shit. And I was wearing gloves because it's cold outside, and the box started to slip, and I squeezed the box, and my finger went through the box, and it felt like I got stabbed. It felt like a staple or something went into my finger. When I pulled my glove off, I was expecting it to be bleeding, and it wasn't bleeding, and it looked fine. I was like, I'll forget about it. The next day, it was like blue and red, and now it looks fine, but I have this weird lump. It's a really hard lump, and anytime I put pressure on the end of my finger, I can feel it in my spine. And I'm like, and it's been a week, so I'm like, I'm pretty sure I broke it. Time to go and make sure it's going to heal properly and the bone isn't disjointed in there or something. And I feel like a little bitch. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I'm like, sure enough, it wouldn't be like a cool bone to break, or, you know, it's just a fucking end of my finger. IKEA shelving. It wasn't IKEA. It was Home Depot, man. I didn't chintz that. I didn't buy a plastic shit. I didn't buy a cheap IKEA shelving, baby. I bought the good stuff, the good shit. The shit that'll hold like 1,000 pounds of weight. I just bought a few shares of Harvest Palantir shares. Nice. Oh God, time to get an X-ray. Yeah, but hey, Canada, baby. Unlike the US, healthcare at any income bracket, no matter how much you hate it and sucks. I only sat in that clinic for like 20 or 30 minutes. That was it. I got in quick. I'm gonna get an X-ray quick too. It's gonna be great. You should see it. You should see the other guy. Oh yeah, totally. If I ever got in a fight. Oh God, Home Depot, short Home Depot. Anyways, folks, stay cool, stay awesome. And I look forward to catching you in the next one. Don't be too degenerate. Don't shit on these US people, man. Let's stay cool. Let's look for those deals. Let's get rich.